repeat the non-conformist oath. I promise to be different. I promise to be unique. I promise not to repeat things other people say.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Positive Blathering podcast with Fitz. That's me, Fitz. And it's brought to you by Rockvox Recording and Production, my new company, my new business, e-learning, voice recording, but more importantly, the podcast studio. You walk in, record your podcast, and walk out with a nice professional file. And then if you want production, nice audio production or whatever, I could do all that for you. But it's a pretty good deal to walk in and have the chance to record your own podcast with professional equipment. Anyway, so on this episode of the Positive Blathering podcast, I'm going to blather about a story that I just saw today. And the headline says, being positive and optimistic is bad for your health. So, of course, my ears are perked up because I'm like, what is up with that? That does not sound like anything that I could relate to. My dogs. Here's what it says. It's about time someone gave us pessimists some good news. Obviously, this is written kind of from a humorous point of view, even though by definition we really weren't expecting any. Ha ha ha. According to a new study out of the University College London, being positive and optimistic can be bad for your health. The researchers found that feeling stressed and worried helps people cope better with bad news. So when pessimists get bad news, they're able to process it and handle it. But when the optimists get bad news, it was so crushing that they got overwhelmed with the stress hormone cortisol, which can cause serious health problems. So here's my answer to this complete hogwash. This is obviously just this is on a radio prep service, so it's created to get people talking about it and create a conversation with the audience. Obviously, I can't create a conversation with you because you're listening to this or watching this, and you cannot give me feedback until after the fact, so it won't be an interactive thing. But anyway, so it's basically saying that if that optimistic people and positive people are essentially superficial, and they can't deal with bad things. It's implying that if you remain positive all the time, that you're kind of unrealistic, that you have no faculties to deal with any kind of bad problems or, bad news or whatever. And that's just a silly idea, because every single day we're confronted with bad news, or maybe not bad news every day, but every day there's always something that doesn't work out the way we want. Even in the smallest detail. For me, one thing that I find that I do a lot, I get mad at inanimate objects. If I go to pick up my beverage container, and in my rush to get out the door, I forgot to screw the cap on completely tight, and the cap flies off, I'll curse out my cup, because I feel like it's the cup's fault. It's my fault. I didn't screw the cap up. But you know what I'm saying? It's a weird knee-jerk reaction that I have. That I get mad at inanimate objects. If I'm not, I think I need whiskers. I'll round a corner and I'll hit the corner of the wall. Boom! Stupid wall. Like the wall stuck its corner out. Gotcha, Fitz. So even the most positive people have to deal with something. Your shoelace comes untied. I don't care. Whatever it is. But this idea that pessimists are better equipped to deal with negative news or bad news or, letdowns in some way. It's not necessarily how you deal with it in the short term. It's how you let it affect you in the long term. So these people that it's implying that these positive people can't deal with bad news because they get overwhelmed, and then they're not a positive person. They're superficially positive. There's a big difference. There's that person, that person walks around like everything's great. It's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day. And then they go home and cry in their pillow because it's all a show. It's all a front to make other people think that they're a positive, happy-go-lucky person. But deep down inside, they're not one of those people. Deep down inside, they're probably some kind of worse than a pessimist. They're probably cynical. And they go and they cry themselves to sleep every night. That's not being positive. Being positive is when you get that bad news, you absorb the bad news, you analyze the bad news, and then you figure out how to learn from the bad news and move on from the bad news. It doesn't mean that you're not going to feel emotions. Of course, you're a human being, you're going to feel emotions. If you're a positive person and you lose your job, you're going to go through a period of remorse, what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like grief, like you lost something you love, especially if it's a job you like. If it's a job you don't like, it's almost freeing. But if it's a job you like, you're going to feel that sting of rejection. The difference is that positive people will only allow for that rejection to stay with them for a certain amount of time while they absorb it and digest it and then learn and then turn it into something that is useful for them to go out and accomplish something to overcome and to reverse that feeling. You know what I mean? Pessimists, they always expect something like that's going to happen. So it does a lot for pessimists, right? If you believe in the law of attraction and stuff like that, if you're constantly feeling that way, it's always going to happen in one way or another. If you constantly feel like something bad's going to happen, something's bad is going to happen. So I don't know. I wanted to blather about this because I thought that this kind of studies come out like this all the time. Hey, coffee's good for you. Coffee's bad for you. Coffee's good for you. Coffee's bad for you. And this little ridiculous headline saying being positive and optimistic is bad for your health is the most ridiculous thing. It's obviously the way they wrote this, at least for the prep service. It's obvious that it's supposed to cause some sort of discussion. Somebody like me is going to be listening and call into the DJ and be like, "Hey, this isn't right. You're full of crap." But the point is that this is a study that came out of University College London. Let's click on this story here and have a better look. Blight side of life. Looking on the bright side is bad for your health as stress helps us cope with bad news better. Now, see, that's a little bit different. Positive people can be stressed. It is totally normal. To say that positive people or optimistic people don't feel stress is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. It's how you let the stress affect you. That's really the big issue. Let's see. Moving in. This is an article from The Sun, by the way. Feeling stressed can help people cope better with bad news, scientists have discovered. It adds to increasing evidence that pressure is sometimes a good thing and sheds fresh light on mental health problems like depression. Now, see, this story is slightly different than their write-up. Most people have a tendency to dismiss bad tidings instead are over-optimistic. But some people, such as those with depression, focus more on negative information, which can actually help them process bad news better. Okay, I can kind of see what they're getting at, but it really flies in the face of what I believe, because it's almost like they're trying to say that people with depression are better off, and I cannot jump on board with that. Well, I'm also not a social scientist, so I don't have a degree that will help me to really process all of this information in the article. Lead author Dr. Neil Garrett, a psychologist at University College London, said humans are better at integrating desirable information into their beliefs than undesirable. This asymmetry poses an evolutionary puzzle as it can lead to an underestimation of risk and thus failure to take precautionary action. Okay. So he's basically saying people that always look on the bright side of life really get broadsided when there is no bright side to a certain situation. And I still disagree. I still feel like in every situation, and it won't be immediately apparent to you, but in every situation, there will always be some kind of bright side. Eventually. I mean, look at some people who were career criminals. And it took some sort of really horrible thing. I mean, some people just don't. Some people are bad and they stay bad and they die bad and they lived in a bad life. That's just who they are. And then there are some people who have gone through whatever it is, went to their, got their punishment, and then turned out, becoming a pastor and inspiring others. I don't know. Another example of why this is the blathering. Because I don't prep for these things. I just fly off the handle here and speak from my heart. My heart isn't always right. It feels right, but it's not always right. So, I don't know. Let's see. If I do this right, you should be able to catch a link to this story from The Sun in the comments or the description or wherever. You'll see it. Look at this, and you know what? Do me a favor and comment on read the story and tell me what you think. Now, disclaimer, I perused the story, okay? I went based on the Radio Prep Service's summation of the story and then started blathering based on my initial reaction. Apparently there's science behind this thing, but there was science behind there was science behind the whole fat is bad for you movement. So, and I don't know. Ignore all the ads next to. So here's a perfect example of why this article is complete bunk. Or at least The Sun is, because on the right side of the article in this website, all there are pictures of suggestive pictures of women and dudes in their underwear and big butts and, whatnot. So their ad placement is a little less than desirable. So take it as it is. It's just a load of bunk. But here, I just wanted to throw that into you. If you hear this kind of crap being thrown at you every day, that pessimism is better than optimism, it's bull. Okay? It's complete bull. Don't believe it. Being positive and being optimistic is really good for your health. There is no other way around it. Anyway, thanks for listening. This has been the Positive Blathering with Fitz. I'm going to have some cool guests in the next few podcast episodes. And I'm going to try to do this video thing. Not that you want to see me, but it's cool. Whatever. You can see how it looks when I actually record it and see that I'm not editing this thing. That this is real blathering, authentic blathering. Anyway, thanks for joining me. We'll catch you next time on the Positive Blathering with Fitz.